And ultimately, the Supreme Court of India, in a landmark judgment in 2020, struck down those circulars, calling them to be disproportionate and illegal. The court further observed that there was barely any evidence to suggest that cryptocurrency was posing a threat to the Indian banking system. Indeed, after the Supreme Court judgment, it is evidently clear that crypto is here to stay. Courts in this country have consistently and actively pushed for a uniform civil code through multitude of judgments, observations, and repeatedly sought for a timeline from the government to bring in and usher in a uniform civil code. It still remains a dream. The number of filings at the Supreme Court of India can go up to 80,000 cases a year. Now, this is 10 times more than what is filed before the United States Supreme Court, and the annual filings at the UK Supreme Court stands at a mere 250 per year. So far, under the Indian Penal Code, only 5 categories of punishment existed. There were fines, death penalty, imprisonment for life, simple or rigorous imprisonment for a shorter period, and forfeiture of property. The inclusion of community service is a welcome change and is in tune with the suggestions contained in various Law Commission reports. Under BNSS, FIRs can now be registered via electronic communication. It will be taken on record on being signed within the next 3 days by the person who has given such electronic information. Electronic and digital records are now clearly classified as primary evidence. This is also a recognition of the impact the digital revolution has had in modern times, wherein most of our lives are captured and processed on digital devices. Is the idea of one nation, one election, or the idea of simultaneous elections really feasible? The supporters of the idea point out that the benefits of conducting polls in one go for the entire country is large, while critics argue that the idea is antithetical to democracy and to the federal structure itself. The Constituent Assembly agreed on the concept of secularism and the secular nature of the Indian polity. It was not explicitly included as a part of the preamble of the Constitution. Later, by the 42nd Amendment, which was passed by the Indira Gandhi administration in 1976, the word secular were added to the preamble of the Constitution of India. It is on the predication of liberty as a fundamental right. Does bail become the rule and jail the exception? It is open to debate how much of this is actually followed in reality. The issue regarding bail has been discussed widely in public fora and in media, often due to the high-profile individuals being arrested and on many occasions denied bail for prolonged periods. The issue, however, at most times is superficially discussed and deserves a much more granular discussions and debate. A junior must be treated with dignity. I think any place of work must treat the junior who joins the chamber or the law firm as a professional and not just as a person who's supporting or playing a supporting role. Therefore, treating the junior with dignity, treating him or her as a fellow professional is, I think, most important. You simply did what you did in the profession, you enjoyed what you were doing, you did well at the bar, and consequently the full court decided to designate you. I was one of those last members of the tribe to get designated prior to the Indira Jai Singh judgments of the Supreme Court. A social media intermediary applies the same standard that it applies in the US in India. The difference is the tolerance limits vis-a-vis community standards and governmental standards. I'll take an illustration. In the United States of America, burning the flag of the United States of America is free speech. It's expression. If I need to protest, I can burn the flag. I'm an American, proud American, but because of a particular governmental action in protest, I'm burning the flag. That is considered free speech and is permitted in the United States of America. If I burn the national flag here, would that be condoned in terms of law? It's an offense in this country to burn the national flag. The Supreme Court has repeatedly held that rummy, for example, is a game of skill and not a game of chance. In the celebrated case of Satyanarayana in 1968, and even more in the celebrated case of RMD Chamarbugwala, the Supreme Court, in 2 Constitution Bench judgments, laid down the law that forms the core for the present legal framework which surrounds online games in India. Consent is at the heart of data protection. Each individual may be made aware by the company or the government the purpose for which the data is being collected. Other than the purpose stated, the data should then not be shared with any other company or individual and not used for any purpose other than what has been stated. Is there a fundamental right to drink or consume alcohol? The arguments in favor of alcohol were multiple. That the state should not be paternalistic in its attitude, that this republic without a pub will be a relic. The state financially benefits from the sale of alcohol because the excise duty and the license fee it collects from the sale of alcohol fills the state's coffers. Online businesses must compete in a fair, non-discriminatory and transparent manner with end users and business users. 2. They must not engage in self-preferencing, that is, favoring its own or affiliated products or services or lines of businesses. 3. They should comply with certain obligations on data usage. 4. They should not engage in tying or bundling any products or services along with the CDS. 5. They should not restrict or impede the ability of end users and business users to use third-party applications or third-party apps. 6. They must allow for end users and business users to change default settings. And finally, 7. They shall not restrict business users from directly or indirectly communicating with or promoting offers to their end users or directing their end users to their own or third-party services unless such restrictions are integral to the provision of the CDS itself. As I mentioned, the law can't purely be ex ante and certainly can't be self-executed. The line is very thin between an OLX ad and the Indian matrimonial ad in a newspaper. Now, despite the advancements in regulating advertisements in various sectors, unfortunately, the matrimonial section still remains a glaring blind spot. Again, historically, India has had a system which operated for many years after independence, in which the executive had a far greater role in the appointment of judges as compared to the judiciary itself. And the first judge's case actually tilted the entire mechanism in favor of the executive. Failing to criminalize marital rape denies married women the same protection afforded to others, undermining their autonomy and equality before the law. On the other, the government contends that labeling such acts as rape within marriage is excessively harsh and could disrupt the institution of marriage, suggesting that existing laws suffice to address violations of consent between spouses. In India, the legal framework currently does not recognize marital rape as a criminal offense. The practice invokes an approach towards instant justice, where superstructures such as houses or petty shops are dismantled using dozers or excavators as a form of punishment. Such practices have faced sharp criticism, with many labeling these demolition exercises as collective extrajudicial punishment. Reservation provides a special support to the disadvantaged so that they can compete with the more privileged. The Supreme Court, in the case of Air India versus Nargis Mirza, emphasized that inequality in any form should not be tolerated, and true equality equals to complete justice. Reservation is seen as a tool to achieve that complete justice.
Therefore, this is a digitally connected society, and our UPI transactions in the recent times have shown us that it is a vastly digitally connected society. And with such digital connection and network infrastructure that this country has, comes not just great potential for growth, but comes great risks. Unfortunately, I think our legal system has done precious little to guard the citizen from such attacks or from the ills of digital mismanagement.